What's going on, Print Fam? If you're new, my name's Cam. Welcome to the Print Life. We're gonna be tackling the terrifying project trying to set up a 4-color job on this hunk of junk. Can we do it? I truly do not know, but we're gonna find out. So let's get it started. We've got 4 films, so there is no stroke, there is no overlap, which means there's very little room for error in regards to registration. Let's go make some screens and then we'll start tackling the process of let's go. There are a lot of ways to skin this cat in regards to setting up your films on the screen. The way I'm gonna do this, because I'm not familiar with this press, is I laid the film on the pallet and then I put tape, just transparent tape facing up, put the screen in the receiver, and then as I lowered it down, I was able to tape the film to the screen. The screen is 18 inches from edge to edge, so obviously that's 9 inches to center. So I have the center lines on my reg marks at 9 inches, 3 3/4 inches down. So from the edge to the top of the reg marks, 3 3/4 inches. When you're setting these up, your distances will be different. That's why I recommend getting your pallet in place on the press and then laying the screen down on the film just for the first one so that you can get your distances. And now that I got the first one done, we're gonna tape the films to the remaining 3 screens. So we got all the films taped to the screens. I'm gonna just use our regular exposure unit, but all the stuff I'm doing, you can use that super cheap, almost free exposure unit that I made. I'll have a link to the video in the corners, so you can check that out. You can do this either way. I'm just gonna do it for convenience purposes. All right, after I've washed it out, I use air, you can use newspaper, paper towels, whatever, to dry the screen on both sides. And what I'm trying to do is get the water off so that when I set this down to dry, it doesn't let emulsion residue or hard water scum run into the openings of the screen as it's drying. After I've washed it out, I set it out in the sun. It post hardens the emulsion, and that's really the reason I do it. And it dries faster. All right, 1 screen down, 3 to go. Alrighty, while I'm waiting for those screens to dry, I do want to just briefly tackle a subject because I get questions about it all the time. The subject I want to talk about is your screen mesh. In my opinion, there are 2 categories when it comes to selecting your mesh for the type of job you're doing. You have the low mesh count category for printing whites, and then you have the high mesh count category for everything else. What my recommendation is for you when you're starting out is to just get screens in both of those categories. So when it comes to printing white, fucking battery died right in the middle of my sentence. Where was I? So when it comes to printing your white ink, you're gonna grab yourself, I would say 4 or 5 156 mesh screens in the manual screen size, which I think is 20 by 24. Probably wrong about that. It's been a long time since I bought them. Now, moving on to printing colors. This is where I think people are gonna disagree with me. Maybe they will, maybe they won't, but it works extremely well for us. We print through a 280 mesh when it comes to printing spot colors. So whether we're printing red or yellow or blue, we're gonna print it through a 280, whether we're doing it on a light garment with no underbase or whether we're printing it over an underbase. So in my opinion, 280s work great. However, they're like glass. The mesh will pop the mesh pops if you're not super careful with them. I cannot talk. The mesh will pop if you're not super careful. Dude! The mesh will pop if you're not super careful with those screens. If you're worried about being able to take care of them, I would recommend going down to like a 230. But if you think you could take care of them, get yourself some 280s. So my recommendation for printing colors is either a 230 or a 280 mesh. Let's move on to the next phase. Now, we're gonna start right here at the registration gate. So I pinched them in as close together as I could, and then I tightened these bolts down. But they kept kind of wanting to push out no matter how hard I tightened it. So I actually twisted the gate just a bit. So it's not perfectly horizontal. And it does seem to pinch down on these well enough where there is no side-to-side movement. But I guess what I'm getting at with these registration gates is this is going to be the key factor as to whether or not this press will allow you to register anything with any kind of precision. So when you get these presses in, you're gonna have to spend some time on this, just trying to get these bearings to clamp down as tightly as possible on this little piece of metal that is welded to the bottom of the arm. The next thing you're gonna do is tackle the receiver here. And what I have noticed with this press, this is absolutely as far down as the arm will go in the gate. I cannot get it to go any lower. The problem with that is if you look, this arm, it is not level. Therefore, the receiver is shooting up. And you're gonna see when I put the screens in the receiver, they have an upward angle. The only way I could see remedying that, which I'm not gonna deal with right now, is raising the mounting point here. It's just not a precision made piece of equipment. It's under 200 bucks. So I guess you can't really have a lot of expectations for it. But if you do decide to go with this press, you're gonna have to bust out the jerry rigging. It's not gonna be simple. Now, you will find all sorts of different shops using all sorts of different methods to register their screens. We use this thing called Rapid Reg. All it is a 1 point, I think it's a 1 point line on a film. Now, I like it because it has some other things that prevent it from sticking to your pallets and all this and that, but you can make one of these just by printing out a 1 point vertical line on a film. Again, you don't need this. You gotta drive that home. Or you can also make one of these very, very easily. You can see I got it lined up vertically pretty well. I'm finding it difficult to bump it evenly up because I do need to go up about a full point. Okay, so once I'm getting it where I think it needs to be, I'm applying downward pressure to the mesh as I slowly tighten, just like you would on a tire or a wheel, back and forth. If you try to crank one down too tight, I'm noticing that it wants to just slip one way or the other. So back and forth. And you do got to get these pretty damn tight, man. Not enough to bend the frame of the screen, but it's going pretty tight there. All right, that looks pretty good. So when I bring this down, I don't know if you can see this, hopefully you can. It isn't perfect, but I'm gonna go through and register the rest of the screens the same way, and then I'll come back through and do a little fine tuning run. Another thing when you're registering is don't come back here when you're trying to hold the screen down. You wanna be pushing down from the mesh when you're checking, because obviously that's where your squeegee is gonna be, is here. It's not back here. And because of screen deflection and all the different movements the screens can make, you want to see where it lands when you're applying pressure on the mesh. Okay, so that looks pretty good. Moving on. I'm starting to think that there might be a little bit of movement in these little bearing hinge things that we have going on here. What will probably end up happening with this kind of situation is you have to pull squeegees at different angles depending on what screen you're doing to kind of shove it this way or that way as you're doing the print. 16 1/4. Okay. I don't know if it's the arm that's a little bit longer, but the image is placed on the screens in the exact same spot. But this particular arm is pushing the screen forward. Let me show you. I'm bumping the screen all the way to the back of the receiver, and even still, you see how this reg mark is above our registration line right here? Arm seems to be a little bit longer or more pushed forward this way than the rest of them. So the first thing I'm gonna do before I go adjusting everything else is I'm gonna see if I can loosen this, and it will allow the arm to push back slightly. I'm gonna try that first. A little closer, but not quite. Damn. There is movement with the shaft that goes through these two bearings here, and what was happening, this isn't fixing it, but I'm adjusting it now anyway, is it was pushed over to this side too far, so I've centered it, and now I'm securing it to these little, I don't know what you call these kind of bearings here, but there is some adjustment you need to do within these bearings to make sure everything's locked down. So by centering this, it twisted this forward, which made it to where this side wasn't screaming this way. So now I'm able to get this where I need it to be. Well, that's good news. Yeah, this one's screaming, dude. So the rest of them are laying fairly flat. There's not a lot of off contact, but this one, when I tighten it, the screen is shooting upwards. I am going to literally try to bend the receiver plate so that it's not shooting up as much. I don't know, dude, this is crazy. Worst idea ever. But because there's no tilt adjustment, it's the only logical solution I can come up with. Don't want to do it too much. Let's see what that did, if anything. Let's see. All right. Moving up. This screen, when I'm unindexing it and reindexing it, it didn't want to stay put. And I'm going, well, why is it moving? It turns out that the bolts that are attaching it to the carousel were a little loose. So obviously, if they're loose, it gives it a chance to move when tension is added and then removed. And the way I'm getting my micro adjustments here as I'm looking at this is I will prop, you can see this index finger, I'll prop it against the pallet and then I'm grabbing it here. I'm also pushing down to make sure that the print head stays indexed all the way down. And then I'm using these two fingers, and this allows me to do this kind of shit. See what I'm saying? So I'm just moving it around, getting it the best that I can. And I'm trying to get my horizontal line, and then I'm trying to line up the vertical lines. That looks pretty good. And then when I feel like I have it, I try not to move anything, and I'm putting my hand in the middle of the mesh here, and then I'm just lightly, because I don't want movement to happen, so just little turns. Taking a little more time here than normal, because I don't want the screen to move, obviously. So as I get a little more tension, I can start increasing. And I still don't know if this is actually gonna hold registration. So I have my concerns all the way around, but we're giving it a good old college try. Now, let's see. And that moved like a sumbitch once I tightened it. So as I tightened these, it shifted this way. This head proving to be the most difficult. I have the first pass done. I'm gonna ink up. We're gonna do a test print. and then see how much adjustment needs to be made. Actually, you know what? I'm just gonna run back through it one more time and see if I can tighten it up a bit. As far as what I'm gonna be printing, we've had these things laying around forever. It's a strange color. I wanna go over here to Illustrator and mess around with some color combos that will look good on this kind of shirt. So my ink selection isn't an exact match. It's good enough. One little thing I noticed with the knobs is because as you're tightening them, there is going to be some shift. So if you get it pretty close, you can tighten them a little bit and you'll literally watch the screen shift one way or the other. And when they got where I wanted them, I just stopped tightening it. Yeah, you can still see the greens out. I did all that adjustment, but it's still riding a little high. So instead of doing a pull, I'm going to flood it like that, and then I'm going to do a push stroke. That might give me the minor adjustments I need. Do a run. So there we go. That is the finished product. Looks pretty good, man. Honestly, I tried to just get some fine details in this thing. If I were gonna use that press to register a job, I would put a 0.25 stroke on all of the colors except for the final, the black or whatever that's gonna go on last to tie the graphic together. And the green, I just couldn't quite get it. It's maybe a little hard to see on camera, but I did, it wasn't perfect. The rest of the colors were in registration. I was able to get 3 out of 4. So yeah, that's that. My conclusion with that press, you can get a multicolor job done. You may get it set up quick sometimes. It may take you all day the next time, but it can definitely handle 1, 2. I think the max color setup I would want to do on it would be 3 colors. I would want to leave that 4th color out. Pop into the comments and let me and the other people watching this video know, based on your experience, what kind of a trap you need to apply to your Illustrator graphics, or if you're doing it in Photoshop, I don't know, 1 or how many pixels you're using. But overall, man, that was a successful print job. I think you guys can get it done. Thank you so much for watching. If you could, pop into the comments, make sure to throw a like my way, and if you're not subscribed, please subscribe.